Chapter 18. Are you telling Firepaw how I protected Redtail? Firepaw felt a cold shiver ruffle the fur on the back of his neck. Ravenpaw whipped around, eyes wide with fear. Tigerclaw loomed over them, his lips drawn back in a menacing snarl. Firepaw jumped up and faced the new deputy.
"He was just saying he wished you had been here to take care of Lionheart as well, that's all,"
he mewed, thinking quickly. Tigerclaw looked from one to the other, then stalked away in silence. Ravenpaw's green eyes clouded with terror, and he started to tremble uncontrollably.
"Ravenpaw?"
Firepaw meowed in alarm, but Ravenpaw didn't even look up at him. With his head held low, he slunk back to Graypaw and crouched next to him, pressing his skinny black body next to Graypaw's thick fur as if he was suddenly cold. Firepaw looked helplessly at his two friends as they huddled beside Lionheart's body. Not knowing what else to do, he padded over and settled himself beside them, ready to sit out the night. As the moon passed overhead, other cats came to join their vigil. Bluestar arrived last, once the camp was calm and quiet. She said nothing, but sat a little way off, gazing at her dead deputy with an expression of such unbearable grief that Firepaw had to look away. At dawn, a group of elders came to take Lionheart's body away to the burial place. Graypaw followed to help dig the hole where the great warrior would rest. Firepaw yawned and stretched. He felt chilled to the bone. Leaf fall was nearly here now, and the woods were clouded with mist, but above the leaves, Firepaw saw a rosy morning sky. He watched Graypaw disappear into the dew-soaked undergrowth with the elders. Ravenpaw jumped to his paws and hurried back to the apprentice's den. Firepaw followed him slowly. By the time he arrived, the black cat was curled up with his nose tucked under his tail, as if asleep. Firepaw was too exhausted to speak. He circled around on his mossy bed and then settled down for a long sleep.
"Wake up!"
Firepaw heard Dustpaw's voice calling through the den entrance. He opened his eyes. Ravenpaw was already awake, sitting bolt upright with his ears pricked. Graypaw was stirring beside him. Firepaw was surprised to see the familiar gray shape. He hadn't heard him come back after burying Lionheart.
"Bluestar's called another meeting,"
Dustpaw hissed at them and ducked out of the ferns. The three apprentices crawled out of the warm den. The sun was already past its height, and the air felt cooler than before. Firepaw shivered, and his belly growled. He couldn't remember the last time he had eaten, and he wondered briefly if he would have a chance to hunt today. Firepaw, Graypaw, and Ravenpaw hurried to join the crowd gathered below the high rock. Tigerclaw was speaking from his position beside Bluestar.
"During the battle, our leader lost another life. Now that she has only 4 of her 9 lives left, I am going to appoint a bodyguard to stay at her side constantly. No cat will be allowed to approach her unless the guards are present."
His amber eyes flicked to Ravenpaw, and then back to the rest of the crowd.
"Darkstripe and Longtail,"
he continued, turning his gaze on the warriors.
"You will act as Bluestar's guards."
Darkstripe and Longtail nodded importantly and sat taller. Bluestar now spoke. Her voice sounded gentle and calming after her deputy's commanding yowl.
"Thank you, Tigerclaw, for your loyalty. But the clan must understand that I am still here for them. No cat should hesitate to approach me, and I am happy to speak to anyone with or without my bodyguards."
Her eyes darted briefly in Tigerclaw's direction.
"As the warrior code says, the safety of the clan is more important than the security of any single member."
She paused, and her sky-blue gaze rested briefly on Firepaw.
"And now, I wish to invite Yellowfang to join ThunderClan."
Meows of surprise rose from some of the warriors. Bluestar looked at Frostfur, who nodded her agreement. The other queens looked on silently. Bluestar continued.
"Her actions last night proved that she is brave and loyal. If she wishes it, we would welcome her as a full member of this clan."
From her place at the edge of the crowd, Yellowfang looked up at the clan leader and murmured,
"I am honored, Bluestar, and I accept your offer."
"Good," meowed Bluestar, her voice firm, as if the matter was now closed. Firepaw purred with delight and nudged Graypaw. He was surprised to realize just how much Bluestar's public show of trust in Yellowfang meant to him. Bluestar began to speak again.
"Last night we successfully defended ourselves against ShadowClan, but they are still a great threat. The repair work we began this morning will continue. Our boundaries will be patrolled constantly. We must not assume that the war is over.
Tiger Claw stood up, his tail held high, and glared down at the assembled cats.
ShadowClan attacked while we were away from camp, he growled. They chose their moment well. How did they know that the camp was so poorly defended? Do they have eyes inside our camp?
Firepaw froze in horror as Tiger Claw fixed his cold stare on Ravenpaw. Some of the cats followed their new deputy's gaze and stared in puzzlement at the black apprentice. Ravenpaw looked at the ground and shifted his paws nervously. Tiger Claw went on.
We still have a while before sunset. We must concentrate on rebuilding our camp. Meanwhile, if you suspect anything or anyone, tell me. Be assured, anything you say will be in confidence.
He nodded to dismiss the clan, then turned and began murmuring to Blue Star. The cats separated and began to move around the camp, assessing damage and forming work groups.
Ravenpaw!
Firepaw called, still shocked by Tiger Claw's dark hint that his own apprentice had betrayed the clan. But Ravenpaw had already bounded away. Firepaw could see him offering to help Halftail and Whitestorm before rushing off to collect twigs so they could patch the holes in the boundary wall. Ravenpaw clearly didn't want to talk.
Let's go and help him,
suggested Graypaw. His voice was flat and exhausted, and his eyes were dull.
You go. I'll be there in a moment,
Firepaw answered.
First, I want to check on Yellowfang, see if she's okay after her fight with Blackfoot.
He looked for Yellowfang in her nest by the fallen tree. She was stretched out in the shadows, her eyes thoughtful.
Firepaw,
she purred when she saw him.
I'm glad you have come. I wanted to check that you were all right.
Firepaw mewed.
Old habits stay longer than old sense, eh?
Meowed Yellowfang, with a flash of her old spirit.
I suppose so,
Firepaw confessed.
How are you feeling?
This old leg injury is playing up again, but I'll be fine,
Yellowfang told him.
How did you manage to fight Blackfoot off?
Firepaw asked, unable to keep the admiration out of his voice.
Blackfoot's strong, but he's not a clever fighter. Fighting you was more of a challenge.
Firepaw looked for the flicker of humor in the old cat's eyes, but there was none. She continued.
I've known him since he was a kid. He hasn't changed. A bully, but no brains.
Firepaw sat down beside her.
I'm not surprised Blue Star asked you to join the clan,
he purred.
You certainly showed your loyalty last night.
Yellowfang twitched her tail.
Perhaps a truly loyal cat would have fought at the side of the clan that raised her.
But then I'd be fighting for my two legs,
Firepaw pointed out. Yellowfang shot him an admiring glance.
Well said, youngster. But then, you have always been a thinker.
Sorrow pierced Firepaw's heart as he remembered these were Lionheart's words too.
Do you miss ShadowClan?
He asked Yellowfang. Yellowfang blinked slowly.
I miss the old ShadowClan,
she meowed at last.
The way it used to be.
Until Broken Star became leader?
Firepaw was curious.
Yes,
Yellowfang admitted softly.
He changed the clan.
She gave a wheezy laugh.
He always knew how to give a good speech. He could make you believe a mouse was a rabbit if he set his mind to it. Perhaps that is why I was so blind to his faults.
The old she-cat stared into the distance, lost in memories.
Bet you can't guess who the new ShadowClan medicine cat is,
Firepaw mewed, suddenly remembering what he had learned at the gathering. It felt like moons ago now. His words seemed to shake Yellowfang back into the present.
Not Running Nose,
she meowed.
Yep.
Yellowfang shook her head.
But he can't even cure his own cold. That's what Graypaw said.
They purred together for a moment, amused. Firepaw got to his paws.
I'll leave you to rest now. Call me if you need anything else today.
Yellowfang lifted her head.
Before you go, Firepaw, I hear you were in a rat fight. Did they draw blood?
It's okay. Spotted Leaf has treated my wounds with Marigold.
Sometimes Marigold is not strong enough for rat bites. Go and find a patch of wild garlic to roll in. I think there's some not far from the camp entrance. That will draw out any poisons the rats may have left. Although,
she added dryly,
your den mates might not thank me for my advice.
Well, I do. Thanks, Yellowfang.
Firepaw purred.
Go carefully, young one.
Yellowfang held his gaze for a moment, then let her chin rest on her front paws and closed her eyes. Firepaw slipped under the branches around Yellowfang's nest and headed for the gorse tunnel in search of the wild garlic. The sun was setting now, and he could hear the queens settling their kits for the night.
"Where do you think you're going?"
growled a voice from the shadows. It was Darkstripe.
"Yellowfang told me to go out and—"
"You don't take orders from that rogue,"
hissed the warrior.
"Go and help with the repairs. No cat is to leave the camp tonight."
He lashed his tail from side to side.
"Yes, Darkstripe,"
Firepaw mewed, dipping his head submissively. He turned and muttered, "Darkstripe," under his breath, then headed toward the camp boundary, where he could see Graypaw and Ravenpaw busily patching a large hole in the wall of greenery.
"How's Yellowfang?"
asked Graypaw as Firepaw trotted up.
"She's fine. She said wild garlic would be good for my rat bites. I was on my way to find some, but Darkstripe ordered me to stay in camp,"
Firepaw told him.
"Wild garlic?"
mewed Graypaw.
"I wouldn't mind trying that. My leg still stings. I could sneak out and get some,"
Firepaw offered. He had resented Darkstripe's offhand treatment and welcomed the chance to outwit him.
"No one would notice if I slipped out of this hole here. It'd only take a couple of rabbit hops."
Ravenpaw frowned, but Graypaw nodded.
"We'll cover for you,"
he whispered. Firepaw nuzzled him gratefully and jumped out through the tear in the boundary wall. Once outside the camp, he began to make his way to the wild garlic patch, the sharp tang alerting him easily to its location. The moon was rising in the violet sky as the sun sank below the horizon. A cold breeze ruffled Firepaw's fur. Suddenly, he caught a cat scent carried toward him on the wind. He sniffed cautiously. ShadowClan? No, just Tigerclaw and 2 other cats. He sniffed the air again. Darkstripe and Longtail. What were they doing here? Curious, Firepaw dropped into a stalking position. He prowled through the undergrowth paw by paw, keeping downwind so that he was not detected. The warriors were standing in the shadow of a clump of ferns, their heads very close together. Soon Firepaw was near enough to hear them speak.
"StarClan knows my apprentice has shown little promise from the start, but I never expected him to turn traitor,"
growled Tigerclaw. Firepaw's eyes widened, and his fur prickled with shock. It sounded like Tigerclaw intended to do more than just hint that Ravenpaw had betrayed the clan.
"How long did you say Ravenpaw was missing on the journey to Mothermouth?"
asked Darkstripe.
"Long enough to have traveled to ShadowClan's camp and back,"
came the deputy's menacing answer. The fur on Firepaw's tail bristled angrily.
"That's impossible,"
he thought.
"He was with us the whole time."
Longtail's voice sounded now, high-pitched with excitement.
"He must have told them that ThunderClan's leader and the strongest warrior had left the camp. Why else would they attack when they did?"
"We are the last clan to stand against ShadowClan. We must remain strong,"
purred Tigerclaw. His tone had become velvety soft now. He waited in silence for a response. It was Darkstripe who answered, eagerly, as if he were still Tigerclaw's apprentice, giving the correct answer to a question on hunting techniques. His words made Firepaw breathless with fear.
"And the clan would be better off without a traitor like Ravenpaw. I have to say, I agree with you, Darkstripe,"
murmured Tigerclaw, his voice heavy with emotion.
"Even though he's my own apprentice."
He trailed off as if he were too upset to say any more. Firepaw had heard enough. Forgetting all about the wild garlic, he turned and crept as silently and as quickly as he could back toward the camp. He decided not to tell Ravenpaw what he had heard. He would be terrified. Firepaw's mind raced. What could he do? Tigerclaw was the clan deputy, a great warrior, and popular with all of the other cats. No one was going to listen to any accusations made by an apprentice, but Ravenpaw was in terrible danger. Firepaw shook himself, trying to clear his head. There was only one thing to do. He must tell what he had heard to Bluestar, and somehow convince her that he was telling the truth.